Welcome back to Ministry of Reconciliation through Social Innovation, lesson number 21, the social change model of leadership development. So the social change model of leadership development is identified as the most applied leadership theory in the context of collegiate leadership development programs. So the social change model approaches the leadership as a purposeful, collaborative, value-based process that results in positive social change. So the social change model of leadership development was introduced by Helen Aston back in 1996 and has 7 distinctive elements. We call it the 7 C's. And I want you to learn these 7 C's and try to apply this principle, the social change model of leadership development, into our discipleship development program. So in a discipleship development program, sometimes we only focus on how we give Bible study. So we are training people to give Bible study so they can go out and win souls for the denomination, and then you become number 1 salesperson of the congregation or church. I know I'm kind of focusing very extreme case of worldview there, but as I said, we think of discipleship development program as only spiritual aspect of engagement, giving Bible study. So I want you to see there is a much bigger engagement, broader engagement in discipleship development program, and incorporating this social change model, in my humble opinion, is critical. And because we want to develop whole person, discipleship development deals with well-being of their physical, mental, social, and spiritual, right? So we want whole person being developed. So following 7 C's would be critical elements for us to incorporate in discipleship development program. So first, consciousness of self. Consciousness of self, in which an individual is aware of his or her own beliefs, values, attitude, and emotions that motivate the individual to action. This is key to being able to develop consciousness of others. So knowing who you are, what is your core values? What are the core values and your beliefs and your worldview, your conviction? What are the talents? Why you are passionate about making a difference? So understanding yourself, consciousness of self, is the beginning of discipleship development journey. So number 2, congruence. Congruence, or thinking, feeling, and behaving with consistency, authenticity, and honesty toward others. Congruence is actions that are consistent with the most deeply held beliefs and convictions, and interdependent from with consciousness of self. So, why we believe what we believe. Why do I feel about certain areas of biblical principles or community actions more critically, and so forth. And number 3 is commitment. The commitment is a psychic energy that motivates individuals to serve and that drives the collective effort. Implies passion, intensity, and duration. And the commitment is directed toward both the group activity as well as intended outcomes. So the commitment requires knowledge of self. right? So you are not just aware of yourself, but you are actually beginning to cultivate the knowledge of yourself. And then number 4 is collaboration, to work with others, to work with others in common effort. Constituents, the cornerstone values of the group in a leadership effort, because it empowers self and others through trust. Yeah, through this collaborative engagement. So leadership as a group process and encourages the group to transcend individual goals, interests, and behaviors. So it is vital that group members explore differences, individual values, ideas, and affiliation, and a vision and identity compared with group values. And number 5, common purpose. The common purpose, which involves the performing that collaborative work with the shared aims and values, facilitates the group's ability to engage in collective analysis of issues at hand and the task to be undertaken. So the best achieved when all members of the group shared in the vision and participate actively in articulating the purpose and goals of the activity. So common purpose, common engagement, common goals is critical. And then number 6, controversy with civility. Controversy with civility, which recognize 2 fundamental realities of any creative group effort, that differences in viewpoints are invaluable. Such differences must be aired openly, but with civility. Because you will have a conflict. You will have a different view. You will have different values crashing. So civility implies respect for others, a willingness to hear each other's view, and the exercise of restraint in criticizing the views and actions of others. This controversy with civility that requires trust among the group members. Conflicts need to be resolved, but also integrated into common purpose. So we will encounter conflict, and hopefully we will, encounter with greater commitment the civility. And then number 7, citizenship. Citizenship is the process whereby the individual and the collaborative group become responsibly connected to the community and the society through the leadership development activity. To be a good citizen is to work for positive change on behalf of others and the community. So the practice of a good citizenship should and needs to happen at every level of this model. So we are not just equipping, a good citizenship in this world, but for the kingdom of God. So we have to have that, higher calling, the conviction of God's, calling into his ministry. So according to Austin, a leader, one who is able to effect a positive change for the betterment of others, the community, and the society, all people, in other words, are potential leaders. Everyone has a potential, competencies and skills that we can develop. And so this is why we have to cultivate their potential ability. So moreover, the process of leadership cannot be described simply in terms of a behavior of an individual. Rather, leadership involves collaborative relationships that lead to collective action grounded in shared values of people who work together to effect positive change. This is why the social change model is critical, to bring the real change, positive change, tangible, recognizable, visible change. I know change is not easy topic to discuss, but change is inevitable because change is the ability to adapt to environments and situations that are constantly evolving while maintaining the core functions of the group. Change, to me, is inevitable. World is continually evolving. We have to be adaptable and flexible to the change. So change is the value hub. That's what I call it, in a value hub, which gives meaning to these 7 C's that we just reviewed. And the change is the goal of the creative process of leadership to make a better world and a better society for self and others. So, as a reminder, the social change model of leadership development is identified as the most applied leadership theory in the context of collegiate leadership development programs. The social change model approaches, the leadership as, again, purposeful, collaborative, value-based process that results in positive social change and emphasize 2 core principles. First, according to John Dugan, the leadership is believed to be inherently tied to social responsibility and manifested in creating change for the common good. So it's not about individual, competencies, but making a difference in people's life and our community. And the second, the leadership, the model is predicted on increasing individuals' levels of self-knowledge and capacity to work collaboratively with others. So it's not about just what have I done? No, it is about collaboratively working with others as a team engagement, whole community engagement, multi-constituent involvement. So this model, the social change model of leadership development, is an essential component of a personal development in both leader development and leadership development. The term leader development is directed toward individuals to expand their capacity to be effective in leadership roles and process. So we are focusing on individual characteristic development like integrity, honesty, transparency, so ethics. So these are the characteristics that we will focus on in this leader development. But the leadership development is different. Leadership development is the expansion of the organization's capacity to enact the basic leadership task needed for collective work. So leadership development that deals with organizational skill set. So when we say leader development, again, that is direct toward cultivating the character traits of individual capacity. As I said, integrity, determination, transparency, passion, humility, and so forth in an individual, So it's about individual characteristic development. Second, leadership development is expanding a leader's organizational and managerial ability to establish direction, motivating people, inspiring people, planning, solving problems, budgeting, organizing, and so forth. So it is dealing with organizational, capacity development, the skills that require to lead organization. So we must invest in both leader development and leadership development, character development of individual capacity, and organizational competencies for organizational capacity. So when we develop the first three elements, remember that out of 5C, consciousness of self, congruence, and commitment, these three would enhance leader development, which is to expand the individual capacity in developing the leader's characteristics. And the next set of three elements, collaboration, common purpose, controversy with civility, which will enhance leadership development, expanding the organizational capacity. Then the individual will become more influential with the church and globally as a citizen of our society. So this is why the social change model is also connected to the four elements of critical consciousness development that presented by Susan in a AAA. Self-awareness, which is developing a deeper awareness of self, self-awareness. It means clearly understanding your level of privilege, your values, your role in society, and your responsibility to others. So knowing yourself, right? Self-awareness. And second is awareness of others. So awareness of others is developing a deeper awareness and broader perspective of others that you work with, that you serve in the organization and the community. It means that church members are collaborating with different groups with different backgrounds in the community. So you have to understand the differences and similarities. The members are out of their comfort zone, right? And they see this sometimes injustice and inequality that exists in our community. So how do we address those issues? So instead of doing inward focused events that often we engage, they begin to explore opportunities to serve outside of the four walls of the church. So as the church members interact with the community members, they begin to hear personal stories and community challenges, and they develop greater awareness of others. Perhaps through their interaction, the church members begin to see the community members as also people. People, yeah, the precious souls belong to God. Sometimes we see people as projects or statistics or fishing pools. We look at our community as a fishing pools that we go sometime. So we will change our perspective. We will become less judgmental and more compassionate towards others when we begin to understand, their life journey, their complexity of life. We will break down the barriers, the wall between the church and the community. We will break down the stereotypes and begin to acknowledge injustice, inequity that happens in our neighbors. Number 3, awareness of social issues, which is developing a deeper awareness and broader perspective of social issues. As the church members inform themselves on social, economic, and political issues, they will begin to question their beliefs and develop solution-focused, constructive services and community engagement. So not only knowing yourself, knowing others, but knowing about your community. Yeah, what are the real issues that we need to focus on? We need to prioritize. And then the last here is ethics of service. Ethics of service, which is seeing one's potential to make a change. This is a discipleship, where disciples make other disciples through positive service experiences, which enhance their feelings of competency and efficacy as difference makers. So the church members who have developed a clear sense of their values are more likely to live in accordance with their beliefs and disciples. So disciples who regard critical consciousness service as a part of their identity are more likely to connect their personal commitment to service with profession where they can make social contribution, the real change. Research shows that academic and civic engagement increase when students take leadership in planning and directing service learning experience. In addition, when they are given opportunities to voice their opinions and make presentations, the students' public speaking and leadership skills improve as they begin to see their role as a change agents. This is why, I want to share with you an example which suggests the following questions be discussed when we are volunteering at a homeless shelter. So imagine yourself, you are taking a group of students or church members to a local homeless shelter and providing a service, cleaning the place and providing meals. I mean, that's important. That I'm not denigrating, that actual physical service that we provide at the homeless shelter. But we need to learn how to implement, this critical consciousness of social change model of leadership development. Right? So after we conduct, the service, cleaning the place and providing meals, then we need to come back and have this reflective learning. Questions such as knowledge-based question. We need to ask, what were your first impressions of the shelter? We need to hear, their first impression. And second, comprehension question. How was this shelter similar or different from what you expected? All right. And analysis, question. What parts of the experience have been most challenging to you? All right. And then synthesis question. What have you personally learned about yourself from this service? And then last, evaluation question. What ideas do you have to help the situation of homelessness? So why is all this is necessary? Because the missional church movement is about deliberately becoming developmental organization. Developing, equipping, educating disciples who will make disciples of others. Right? So we cannot just go out and provide food and clothing and clean up the place and thinking that is all we do. No, yes, that is a part of our engagement as a service, as relief. But we must equip our members to become world changers, difference makers, as disciples who will make disciples. This is why I'm going to introduce to you new, not the new, but the additional discipleship development model that presented by the Robert Kegan and Lisa Lash back in 2016. In fact, they said the research shows that the single biggest cause of work burnout is not work overload, but working too long without experiencing your own personal development. Did you hear that? If there is no personal development, no personal growth opportunity, people will leave the organization. And the church is also challenged with this expectation. In fact, Dr. Reg McNeil said that a growing number of people are leaving the institutional church for a new reason. They are not leaving because they have lost faith. They are leaving the church to preserve their faith. They contend that the church no longer contributes to their spiritual development. Did you hear that? So, if we as a church learning environment, we are not providing personal development opportunity, no spiritual development opportunity, members will look for those opportunity elsewhere. That's why our discipleship development in a program must be expanded as a scope of service beyond just limiting to a Bible study. Both Kagan and Tover present that for successful organizational growth must encounter 3 states of personal development mindset as follow. Number 1, socialized mind. Number 2, self-authorizing mind. Number 3, self-transforming mind. Okay? So first, socialized mind. In a socialized mind is where the leaders develop team players, faithful followers, aligning with the people, seeking direction, and building relationship. This is actually the basic level of leadership development. So, this is why we want transformational leadership development. It takes time to develop team. It takes time to equip, people with the competencies and skill set, aligning people for, next 3 to 5 years of our engagement. And number 2 is a self-authorizing mind. Self-authorizing mind is where the leaders focus on agenda, learn to lead, develop their own compass, develop their own frame of work, focus on problem solving, and they are operating independently. So this is the level where people are beginning to dream. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what we could accomplish, how we could transform our community. 5 years from now, it will be different than, community today. So that's where we are at. And then third is self-transforming mind. Self-transforming mind is where leaders become meta-leaders. Meta-leaders. Leaders are leaders of leaders, like pastor of pastors. So leaders of leaders who mobilize people and organization to collaborate in times of crisis. A leader who leads to learn, developing multiple frames of work. And instead of a problem solving, they are investing their time in problem finding. You see the differences. So instead of problem solving, you are investing in problem finding. They are being proactive, right? It takes 8 to 10 years of journey to grow meta leaders in this category. So if we are keep transitioning people every year or 2, we are not in transformational leadership development. We are in transactional leadership behavior. So for our pastors must become spiritual leaders of our community. And it takes at least 8 to 10 years for them to become spiritual leaders, meta leaders. So if we are keep changing our pastors, 2-3 years, less than 5 years, they are not able to become spiritual leaders of their community. Perhaps they are good leaders of the congregation, But I believe our calling is greater than, pastors just, focusing on the local congregation. The pastors must become, change agents, the difference makers of the community for the kingdom of God. So the church must become deliberately developmental organization where we equip and educate disciples through intentional, provisional, and sustainable discipleship and personal development opportunities. We must create a culture, an environment where individuals could learn to improve their self-efficacy as difference makers for the kingdom of God. When the church and community members collaboratively engage in meaningful critical consciousness service learning and social change, we can connect people socially and spiritually inside and outside the ecclesiastical organizations.